My name's Elias. I'm 32, and if you ever want to test how much resentment a person can carry and still smile through it, try being the regret your mother toasts to at her retirement party. It happened last Friday. My mother, Denise, was finally retiring after nearly 4 decades in the school district. Elementary vice principal turned local legend, as the paper once called her. Everyone was there: former colleagues, students, family, neighbors, and of course, my older brother, Grant, the golden boy. He was the star athlete turned financial advisor with a wife, 2 kids, a golden retriever, and apparently my mother's undivided pride. Growing up, Grant was always the responsible one, the leader, while I was the kid who got too quiet in crowds, the one who asked questions at dinner that made people shift uncomfortably. I was the one who didn't follow the script. No sports, no big career moves, no settling down in the suburbs. I worked in digital media, remote, freelancing mostly. I traveled, sometimes too much. To them, I was the weird one. The mistake. The event was held at a local golf club ballroom, complete with a buffet, string quartet, and a slideshow that played softly in the background. Pictures of her with students, teachers, PTA meetings, Christmas parties, and award nights. Grant and I were featured in some photos too, mostly from when we were kids. But every time my face appeared, the slides seemed to change just a little faster. I knew the tone of the night the moment I walked in. My mom greeted me with a kiss on the cheek and said, "You clean up nice, Elias." For once. Then she turned to greet the mayor. Grant gave me a handshake and an overly rehearsed, "Glad you made it, little bro," like I hadn't flown in from Barcelona just to be there. The speeches started halfway through dinner. Her old colleagues said kind things. Some funny stories. Light applause. Then Grant took the mic. "It's rare that a mother can do so much for so many," he began, "and still find the time to raise 2 incredible sons. Well, 1, anyway." The room burst into polite laughter. He looked over at me like it was all in good fun. I sipped my water. When Mom finally took the stage, her hair perfectly pinned, her floral blazer matching the napkins, she smiled warmly at the crowd. "I've spent my life trying to make a difference," she said, "to shape young lives. And I'm proud to say I raised 2 amazing children." She paused. Her lips curled into that knowing smirk I hated as a kid. "And 1 regret." The audience roared. Grant laughed the loudest, nearly clapping. "At least she's finally saying it out loud," he called out. And I just smiled. Because I came prepared. See, this wasn't my first humiliation. This wasn't even the 10th. Every family holiday had become a quiet exercise in being tolerated. Christmas? I got a re-gifted mug and a silent seat at the table. Last Thanksgiving, they forgot I was allergic to walnuts and put pecan pie at every place setting but mine. My birthday this year? A group text at 11 p.m. with 1 thumbs up emoji from Grant. But this night? This night was mine. I had brought a small gift bag, plain blue paper, nothing flashy, and left it under the podium before dinner. No one had noticed. I walked up slowly, took the mic from her hands as she beamed at me like I was still 6 and about to recite something stupid for attention. "Then you won't mind," I said into the mic, "if I share my gift first." The room quieted, more out of politeness than curiosity. I reached into the bag and pulled out a small remote. "I thought I'd contribute to the slideshow," I said casually, clicking once. The screen flickered. The photo of her holding a student's award disappeared, replaced by another, a scan of an email. From 5 years ago. My dad's name in the subject line, and a message beneath it. Short, cold, damning. "Denise, I can't keep doing this. You lied. You said he was mine. But the test was clear. Elias isn't." The room gasped. My father, or the man I had called my father for 32 years, dropped his fork. My mother's face drained completely. Grant stopped laughing. I clicked again. The next slide came up. A PDF of the paternity test. Dated. Signed. Certified. I didn't say anything. Not yet. I just watched the expressions shift. Some confusion. Some horror. Some people whispering already. I could feel every pair of eyes crawling across me like ants. And I just stood there, still holding the mic, breathing in the silence like fresh air. Because this wasn't just about genetics. It was about the 32 years I spent chasing scraps of validation from a woman who resented my existence and a family who treated me like a punchline. This was just the beginning. But I paused there, letting it sink in, letting everyone, including the people who laughed minutes ago, see the full weight of what had just been dropped into the room. And my father? His hands were shaking. He looked at my mom with disbelief, anger, betrayal. And then he opened his mouth. But before he could say a word, I turned off the mic and clicked to the next slide. The next slide wasn't a document. It was a photo, an old one, grainy, scanned from a physical print. A picture of my mom in her 20s, sitting on a beach towel with a man no one in that room had ever seen before. Not my dad, not anyone they'd know, but I knew who he was. She wasn't wearing her wedding ring in the picture. She was smiling too wide, hair windblown, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. And the man? He had his arm around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder like he belonged there. Like this wasn't just some summer fling. And dated in the corner, March 1991. 11 months before I was born. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I just let the image sit there on the screen like an open wound. The crowd had fallen silent. Even the waitstaff stopped moving. Forks were midair. A single champagne flute tipped and clinked softly against the floor, but nobody looked away from the screen. My father, Steve, stood up so suddenly his chair toppled over behind him. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. Finally, he spoke. "Who was that?" His voice was hoarse. My mother said nothing. She hadn't moved. Not an inch. Steve stepped forward, eyes locked on the photo like it was a ghost. "Denise." "Who is that man?" Still, she said nothing. So I answered. Calm. Clear. His name was Eric. He was a substitute teacher at her school for a semester. They kept in touch. She told him I was his. And then she told you I was yours. My father's head turned toward me like it physically hurt to hear. "How do you know all this?" I pulled a folded letter from my jacket. "He wrote this to her. Back in 2001. She kept it. It was in the attic. I found it last year when I was helping her move boxes." I handed it to him. He didn't reach for it at first. Then, slowly, like he didn't trust his own limbs, he took it, opened it, started to read. As he did, his expression changed. From confusion to pain. From pain to something else entirely. "You knew?" he asked, still looking at her. "You've known all this time, and you let me believe," his voice broke. "You let me raise him, pay for everything, sit through this." He gestured toward the party, the cake, the guests. "Steve, my mom finally tried to speak, but her voice cracked like glass. "You lied to me. For 32 years. His voice was louder now. "And you let our son, no, your son, grow up thinking he was the problem?" I glanced at Grant. He looked pale, like he was finally doing the math in real time, like everything he'd ever believed had just twisted sideways. He stood up. "Wait, what is this? Elias, what are you saying?" I turned to him. "I'm saying you spent your whole life lording over me like I was some burden, some stain on the family. But turns out I was never really part of it. Not the way you were. Not to her. I was just a reminder of something she tried to bury." Grant opened his mouth, then shut it again. No comeback this time. No punchline. Just silence. I took a step forward and looked out across the crowd. "You all toasted her for being this pillar of the community, this hero of education. But here's the truth. She built her image by erasing parts of her life she didn't want to acknowledge, starting with me." The room was dead quiet. Someone near the back, one of her teacher friends, stood up and quietly walked out. Then another. I clicked the remote again. This time, the screen went black. No more slides. Just me, holding the mic. "I didn't come here to ruin a party," I said softly. "I came here to end a lie." Then I set the microphone down on the podium, walked to my seat, and sat down. The tension didn't break. It stretched, thick and quiet and unbearable. Steve was still holding the letter, staring at the paper like it was an X-ray of everything he hadn't wanted to see. My mom still hadn't moved. And then, after what felt like an entire minute, she finally spoke. "You had no right," she said, her voice low and shaky. I turned to her. "No right. You stood up in front of everyone and said you raised 2 amazing children and 1 regret. You made this public. I just gave them the context." She looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time in my life, I saw something other than irritation or disappointment in her eyes. I saw fear, not of me, but of everything falling apart in real time. Her reputation, her marriage, her perfectly manicured legacy. "This isn't fair," she whispered, almost to herself. And that made me laugh. "Fair? You think any of this was fair?" But before I could say more, my dad dropped the letter, looked at both of us, and said something I'll never forget. Get out. At first, I thought he meant me, but he didn't even glance my way. He was staring directly at her. The room was so quiet I could hear the slow hum of the air conditioning vents overhead, like background noise in a suspense movie just before something snaps. Steve's voice had cut through the air like a blade. Get out. He said it again, louder this time. Not shouted, just sharp. Final. Denise's mouth opened like she was about to protest, but then she caught something in his eyes. Something cold. Something that told her this wasn't a fight she was going to win. Not here. Not in front of all these people. Steve, she started, taking a cautious step toward him. No, he said, backing away. You lied to me for 3 decades. You let me believe. You let me believe he was my son. He gestured to me without looking, and I treated him like one, even when you didn't. A murmur rippled through the guests. A few more people gathered their things and started quietly slipping out, some out of discomfort, others maybe out of embarrassment for having clapped and laughed minutes earlier. She turned, slow, as if remembering the eyes on her now, and she forced a smile, the same tight, strained smile she used when a parent accused her of favoritism at school board meetings. Everyone, I think this has all just been. Don't, I said, standing again. Don't gaslight the room now. You don't get to spin this. You lied to Dad. You erased me from every family celebration in one way or another. And you were perfectly fine letting Grant treat me like a stray dog you let in the house out of pity. Grant flinched at that, but he didn't interrupt. Steve looked at me then, the first time since the slides. He wasn't angry, not at me, just broken, hollow. His face looked older than it had an hour ago. And you, he said to me slowly, when did you find out? I took a breath. Last year, just before Thanksgiving. I found the test and the letter in a storage box she asked me to move. I confronted her in private. She told me it didn't matter. Said, you're still lucky we raised you. Like I was some stray she adopted out of charity. He shook his head slowly, almost in disbelief. And you didn't tell me? I looked down, then back at him. I didn't know how. I thought about it 100 times. I wanted to scream it some nights. But every time I came close, I'd just see how happy you were to still believe it. How much it would break you. His shoulders slumped. And then, quietly, he whispered, it still broke me. My throat tightened, but I didn't look away. Across the room, Grant suddenly stood up straighter, like something had clicked in his brain. He pointed at me. You planned this. You waited until her retirement party to drop this bomb. You wanted to humiliate her. You wanted to ruin everything. I turned to him slowly. You mean, kind of like how she called me her regret in front of 100 people? While you laughed. That kind of humiliation. His jaw tightened. You think I ruined the night? I asked. No. I revealed the truth. You just don't like how it made you look. Grant took a step forward. You could have done this quietly. Privately. But no. You wanted the show. The drama. I nodded. You're right. I didn't want it public. Because every ugly thing you two have done to me has always come with a smile and a microphone. A backhanded comment at a birthday. A toast with a dig. A wedding speech where I was the punchline. For once, I wanted the truth to be the loudest voice in the room. He didn't respond. His fists were clenched, but he didn't move. Behind us, the cake table still sat untouched. One of the balloons tied to the chair had deflated slightly, drooping like even it didn't want to be part of the party anymore. Denise finally walked toward the exit, one slow step at a time, clutching her purse like a shield. She didn't say anything to anyone. Not even Grant. Not to me. Not even to Steve. And then she was gone. The door closed behind her with a soft, echoing click. My father turned to the remaining guests. Just a few dozen now, quiet and uncertain. Thank you all for coming, he said flatly. The party's over. People didn't argue. They just started gathering their things and filtering out. Some gave me sympathetic glances. A few looked at me like I was radioactive. I didn't care. Grant walked out without a word. His wife trailing behind him, looking more confused than upset, probably wondering what secrets her marriage might be hiding. And then it was just me and Steve, and a few waiters in the distance, cleaning up spilled drinks and plates of half-eaten salmon. He finally sat down again, slowly, rubbed his forehead like it was all too much. I sat across from him. You okay? I asked cautiously. He didn't look up. I don't know. There was a long pause. I'm not your biological son, I said gently. But I never wanted that to matter to you. I wanted you to know me. See me. The way you saw Grant. His hand twitched. Then he looked at me, really looked, and he asked the question I'd always feared, but somehow expected. So what do you want from me now, Elias? I looked at him across the table, the space between us weighed down by 3 decades of silence, missteps, and all the things neither of us ever said. My fingers tapped the side of my water glass as I thought about his question. What do you want from me now, Elias? It wasn't an easy question. A year ago, I would have said I wanted an apology. Some admission that the way I'd been treated all my life wasn't normal or fair. That being left out of family photos, plans, and holidays wasn't a coincidence. That the way I was constantly compared to Grant and always found lacking wasn't just in my head. I would have wanted him to say he was sorry for never noticing. But sitting there now, with the wreckage of my mother's retirement party still echoing in the air and the slideshow still paused on a black screen, something had shifted. I didn't want him to apologize for her anymore. I didn't want him to explain her. I didn't even need him to defend me. So I said the first thing that came honestly. Nothing. His brow furrowed. Nothing. I don't want anything, I said, quietly but firmly. Not money. Not sympathy. Not a redo. I'm not here to be adopted retroactively. I needed the truth to come out. I needed you to see it. All of it. He looked at me, searching for something in my face. Maybe anger, maybe bitterness. He probably expected a speech about how I wanted a relationship or how we could rebuild. Instead, I just sat there with my hands folded on the white linen tablecloth, calm and still. You could have told me in private, he said again, repeating what Grant had earlier. You had time. I nodded. I could have. But then it would have been swept under the rug, like everything else. She would have cried. Grant would have called me ungrateful, and you would have defended her. You know it. I know it. He didn't argue. I leaned forward slightly. Every time I stood up for myself, I was told I was being difficult. Every time I asked why I wasn't included or why I was treated like an outsider, someone made a joke or changed the subject. I was always too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. A long silence stretched between us. I'm not trying to punish you, I added, softer now. I spent most of my life wondering what was wrong with me. And the truth is, I was never broken. I was just inconvenient. Steve's eyes glistened. He looked down, fingers tightening around the armrest of his chair. I remember, he said slowly, when you were 12. You wanted to go to that writing camp in Vermont. You begged for weeks. I remembered too. I wrote an essay to get a partial scholarship. Mailed it in myself. Told my parents every day how badly I wanted to go. She said no. Steve continued, voice distant. Said it was a waste of money. Said we couldn't justify it. I nodded. Then 2 months later, Grant got that new mountain bike and a GoPro. He exhaled shakily. I should have seen it. I didn't respond. Some things didn't need agreement. Finally, he looked up. I don't know what happens now. With your mother. With us. I met his eyes. I'm not asking for anything to happen. I just wanted the truth out there. Whatever happens next is on you. He nodded slowly, almost like his neck was made of stone. You're not a regret, Elias. I gave him a faint smile. I know that now, whether she admits it or not. We sat in silence for a while. The banquet hall was nearly empty now. A few servers were folding up tables, stacking chairs. One of them accidentally knocked over a centerpiece vase, and the crash jolted both of us. But we stayed seated. Eventually, Steve stood up. You staying in town for a while? A few more days. He hesitated. Would you maybe come by the house sometime? Not for her. Just maybe we could talk. I considered it. Maybe. But I'm not going to pretend everything's fine. I'm not going to sit around and play family like this didn't happen. He nodded, solemn. I wouldn't ask you to. I stood too, adjusted my coat. All right then. He offered his hand. I looked at it for a second, then shook it. It felt strange, formal, awkward, like two businessmen shaking on a deal neither of them understood. But it meant something. Maybe not everything, but something. And then I walked out. The next morning, I woke up in the small guest room at the inn downtown. The sun was spilling in through the half-open curtains, and my phone had more notifications than I cared to read. A few were from people at the party, some saying they had no idea that they supported me. Others were just vague, "Are you okay?" texts that I ignored. But one message stood out. It was from Steve. Just a simple. I started packing a few of her things. Don't know what I'll do yet. But I wanted you to know I believe you. And I'm sorry it took this long. I didn't reply right away. I just set the phone down, looked out the window, and breathed. For the first time in a long time, I felt still. Not vindicated. Not victorious. Just still. Later that afternoon, I walked by the old park near our neighborhood. The one where I'd played as a kid, usually alone, since Grant didn't want me tagging along with his friends. I sat on the bench near the rusted swing set and just listened. Birds chirping, leaves rustling, kids laughing somewhere in the distance. It felt like closure. Not a clean one. Not the kind wrapped in a bow, but real. The truth had been set loose. And whether they liked it or not, no one could pretend anymore. A few days later, I boarded my flight back to Spain. As the plane rose above the clouds, I thought about how strange families were. How blood and last names and childhood photos didn't always mean closeness or love. Sometimes, they just meant shared history. And history, when left unchecked, had a way of rotting in the attic like forgotten boxes full of lies. I never heard from my mother again. Not directly. I found out from a cousin months later that she moved in with her sister in Arizona. Told people I ambushed her and twisted the narrative. She kept her pride. She always would. Grant sent one email, short, impersonal. Something about wishing things had gone differently. I didn't reply. But Steve? He kept in touch. A few emails at first. Then a call. Then another. We didn't rush into anything. There were no grand reunions or tearful breakthroughs. But every conversation was a step. A choice. And over time, we found something that maybe resembled what we never had before. Not a father-son bond built on obligation or tradition, but something quieter, based on honesty, mutual respect, a strange kind of understanding that neither of us had words for. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. And sometimes, that's all you need.